Performance Marketing Podcast is sponsored by the Foxwell Founders Membership. If you want to be great at paid social, the Foxwell Founders Membership is perfect. It's a community of the best paid social marketers and agency owners. Ask any question, and hundreds of elite marketers can work with you on it. This isn't a Facebook group with fake ROAS screenshots. These people are paid a lot of money for their advice, and with the Foxwell Founders Membership, you get full access to them 24/7. So go to foxwelldigital.com and sign up today. Welcome to the Performance Marketing Podcast. Today we're doing an episode on positioning. It's a core marketing strategy. If you're on YouTube watching, my dog is just running around in the Zoom camera. Yeah, so positioning, it's a core marketing strategy that just read a bunch of marketing books. Every great marketer in history talks about it. But I don't see a lot of the marketing Twitter or people in these Facebook groups and stuff talking about it. And it's definitely one of the more actionable topics in terms of like, what should I talk about in my ad? What should my ad say? What specific topics should I cover in my ad and why? I actually propose a topic to the team. So I figure I'd start talking about it. I'll start it off. We just have some discussions. So a lot of times, what is positioning? I probably should have Googled the exact definition before I started talking, but it's basically how you present your product compared to the rest of the market. And that could basically, instead of saying we're the same thing but better, or we're the same thing but cheaper, say you have to position yourself as a completely different, unique product. Even if you're not, there's some unique feature, you want to explain that. That's pretty much positioning summarized. That kind of puts you in a different category class as the rest of the industry. You're perceived as like the first, as like a whole new industry. You're like basically creating a new category in the industry. Think of like all the big businesses that broke out in the last few decades or whenever. They all had some kind of positioning component, like Netflix or even like Apple. Apple's the best one. I think I was talking to the Cooley, you were mentioning it, like Steve Jobs and Apple, they didn't invent the MP3 player, but they positioned the iPhone as like the first of like this revolutionary new product so successfully, and or the iPod, the iPhone, that people think they just invented the smartphone, invented the MP3 player, or at least it's perceived as that. So that's like the best macro example. Uber, the first, like a lot of these companies where their name is like a verb. Oh, I'm going to Google something. Google wasn't the first search engine to my knowledge, or I'm going to Uber somewhere. I'm going to Xerox. I'm going to do whatever. Those are good examples of positioning.
I think another really good one is Liquid Death. Like we all drink water, but they position themselves as if they're some kind of like almost energy drink. And Liquid Death it's such a bold brand name. And I think there's that coffee one as well. Like Paul, you showed me a coffee one.
That's it. That's very smart actually. Like coffee is a commodity, right? And water essentially isn't like a commodity, but it's just like it's everywhere, right? But yeah, Death Wish Coffee. So they essentially market or position themselves as like the strongest coffee in the world, when really it's the same coffee as what you'd buy in the shop. And then there's also, what's it called? Black Rifle Coffee. I don't know if you guys have heard of them. They position themselves just for like army vets because they're ex-veterans, like the founders. And like, that's how these businesses are able to make millions off a commodity product, which is coffee. So yeah, it is vital.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So kind of going into what it means, actually, what spurred the conversation in our own group chat was I was reading 22 Immutable Laws of Marketing. And these guys also wrote a book on positioning, which probably should have read that before the podcast, but that's a great one. But basically, like the first three rules, there's all about position. So the first one is law of leadership. It's better to be first than it is to be better. So like Uber or Lyft, they have examples from like 50 to 100 years ago of different companies, but being like the first, like Uber, for example, it might not be the best service. Maybe they increase their prices, maybe Lyft is better, whatever you think of it. It is the first major one in the industry, in this ride sharing industry. So they took the name of it, like, oh, I'm going to Uber somewhere. They have the verb in the language now. That's an example. But then there's one that, like, if you're an advertiser, it's a very low chance that your product is the first in its industry. So what's more actionable for you is probably law 2, which is where really where I started taking notes is if you can't be first in a category, set up a new category you can be first in. So I don't actually, the examples I used would all violate my NDA, so I don't want to say that. But yeah, like the Uber examples, basically like there's like a whole matrix you can go through. If you just Google positioning Venn diagram, you can just separate what's different about your product that other companies can't even offer. And then that's what you kind of focus on in your ad. And that's kind of like a huge thing you can talk about. Actually, let me Google one. Maybe I can share my screen. We can go through it.
Yeah, I really like that. I think, yeah, what we essentially look for is, what does your brand offer? What do your competitors offer? And what do you offer in commonality? Like, where can you find that differentiation in how you're offering to what you're offering to the market to actually create a complete difference and almost like a new market, so you can, position yourself as something either better or an alternative to another product.
Yeah, I think, like all those examples that we gave before are really good examples of that, as in they've taken that core product, whatever it may be, and then they've just, again, kind of niched that market or positioned themselves to a certain market which is there. Because that's another point. You have to, I guess, position yourself to a market that actually exists. You can't just think like you're a water company that's got to go to people in Sydney who love climate change, right? Like, if that market doesn't exist, that's not something you're gonna, obviously it's not something that's gonna work. So you just have to test all those positionings via ads, via organic and all that, and see what resonates with the audience, because that's something that I think is a bit overlooked too. But yeah, I think, I don't know, I'm just going to pull up the definition too.
Yeah, I'm actually going to share my screen real quick. And this is maybe for the people on YouTube, but if you basically just Google positioning Venn diagram or brand positioning Venn diagram, one comes up. It's just like a triple Venn diagram. It's basically what customers want, what your competitors want, and what your brand does best. So in the zone in the middle, where it's an overlap of what you and your competitor do and what the customer wants, that's what's called the risky zone, because that's when you're talking as if you're in the same category as them. Whereas if you talk into the zone of things you guys can offer, but the consumers want and the competitors cannot offer, that's a more advantageous zone. And an example I want to show you of this is one I did for Magic Spoon cereal. Now, full disclosure, I have zero affiliation with Magic Spoon cereal. I just stalk their ad library like a psychopath. And actually, I just stalk their ad library like a psychopath. And it's just, I've been following their ad library so long that I can kind of do a positioning exercise from them. So Magic Spoon, if you're not familiar, it's a cereal that is high protein, low sugar. I don't know if it's low calorie. I wouldn't say it's low calorie, but anyway, high protein, low sugar. It's almost like eating Greek yogurt in the morning. It's like actually very good for you if you're trying to build muscle or whatever. Like a lot of fitness people, if you're not familiar. So their situation, you guys are probably familiar. I know Akash is familiar. I've showed him this before, but
yeah.
So if you're looking on YouTube, so they're a low sugar cereal, high protein, but they also taste like super sweet and delicious, almost like kids cereals, but adults, we love them. Anyway, the part that they have in common with their competitors is that they're tasty. It's a convenient breakfast option. You just add some milk or whatever. However, what they're different in is their health things, like the low sugar, high protein. If their ads just said, we're a tasty cereal, no one would really care. Like they would not have the scale they have. They would not be very successful. But all of their, hold on, I'm going to stalk their ad library real quick. All of their ads address high protein, low sugar, and the taste at the same time, kind of, just because there's a lot of disgusting health foods out there.
Yeah, they've got incredible branding as well. Like their site is absolutely amazing.
Magic Spoon's a great brand to stalk. They do a lot of, look at subdomain get.magicspoon.com. I bet it's a landing. You can check out their landing page. I'm just nerding out real quick. Okay, yeah, it's a dedicated landing page. Okay, cool. Anyway, they're a great ad library to stalk because they're always testing awesome stuff. But yeah, they're always talking about, now they're kind of well known, honestly, but look, all their ads, they have the 1G sugar, 10G protein, 4G, what are that, carbs or net carbs? Okay, cool. But they always talk about high protein cereal, it's always high protein or low sugar is in all their ads. That's like their big difference. If they just said they're a tasty cereal company, no one would really care. So that's really what positioning is. So basically my point is, like, if you're running Facebook ads, find what your brand does different and make sure that is definitely the unique selling point. I guess unique selling point is the other phrase in the industry. But definitely make sure that's a focal point in all your ads. Otherwise, I don't think your ads are really going to scale the way you want them, or you'll definitely just have an advantage in your ads.
It kind of comes up to if you don't do this, it kind of comes up to pricing, because like the consumer is looking at you and the competitor, and the only difference potentially is that pricing example. If you haven't depositioned, which no one wants to be in because it's a race to the bottom there. And this is where I think you can deposition yourself and actually price higher, because there's a certain market that is willing to pay for example, a high protein, low sugar cereal, because there's nothing else out there. And that's what's really important to them, because pricing is just perception. And if that position to the market is important enough to the market, then they're willing to pay that higher price too.
I agree.
Yeah,
I think it also like it eliminates the whole undercutting. Like people can anyone can differentiate on price. They just reduce the price itself. But when you really want to stand out as a brand, it's like, what do you offer and why should someone buy it? That's the main two questions. What problem are you solving for them to actually come and buy it? Like, and for any brand, Magic Spoon, Liquid Death, these guys have done absolute, like they've taken something that everyone knows and takes, like breakfast, for example, here, and they've like depositioned all of the other cereal by making it look like they're the low sugar cereal. It's also health conscious because like it's almost fitness, meal prep, high protein, like all of those elements are sort of depositioning your everyday cereal, which are normally high in sugar and XYZ.
And that's a key point. I like what you and Pooley said. Basically, the low price, you don't want to get into a pricing war. A lot of Amazon sellers tell me like, oh, Amazon is a race to the bottom because you're just the same product and with a bunch of different sellers, whoever is the cheapest one gets it. This isn't the case. It like Magic Spoon, it's very expensive for other cereal, but I don't know what their profits and loss. I don't know how successful they quote unquote successful they are, but they don't talk about price a lot in their ads. And that's pretty much why. They're not trying to compete on price. They have so much value. They're trying to beat you over the head with value that you don't even care about the price. Yeah, they're pretty successful, I would say, just because they're clearly a growing company. They're spending a lot in ads.
Yeah, it's kind of like, I don't know if anyone's read that book by Peter Thiel, 0 to 1. He essentially says like competition is for losers, right? And obviously there's a bit of debate there. But his point, I think, is that, like the top companies like Microsoft, Apple, Facebook, they all have competition, but they position themselves totally different, right? Like Facebook's well above the Snapchats and all that. Apple's well above their competition too. And he's saying that like pretty much having a monopoly is obviously the way to go. And just statistically, those kind of companies, monopoly companies, obviously just win in looking at the data historically. So I think that's another kind of valid point in depositioning. It's like, how can you have no competition, like in a way, if that makes sense? Because that'll help not only in pricing, but also in the like longevity of your business. Because you can make a market, have no competition, and pretty much own the market in a monopoly kind of sense, which is kind of cool.
I completely agree. I think if you look at Apple, right? I know like Apple's a really good example of it. They don't compete on price. Their whole thing is not undercutting Android. Like that's why you'd go to like something like an Android or any other phone, is if you're trying to compete on price. They compete on things like camera quality. They like different features of their phone that can completely change the game for a customer versus trying to undercut something like a Google phone or a Microsoft phone, or just any Android in general. They don't try to compete in that price deduction market. It's almost like a losing game for both. And even if you compete on price, all you're doing is your margins are still the same. You're just reducing your profit. That's all you're doing by trying to compete on price.
Yeah. If your positioning is good enough, you can raise your prices.
100%.
You can be the most expensive.
Yeah. I was just quickly going to say, like, Apple actually did a really good ad a while ago. Like, when I say a while ago, I think early 2000s, where they essentially did like a Apple versus Microsoft ad. And essentially it was a massive depositioning ad where Apple was like the slim, nice looking person who like did XYZ. And Microsoft was more like the fatter kind of bulky kind of person. And that's exactly how they position themselves now. Like, they're both laptops, but everyone likes the Apple because it's slick. It's got nice like materials they use. The unboxing kind of style is super slick and all that. So they've literally, like, that's a really good example of depositioning compared to Microsoft when they're exact same product. Some would argue Microsoft's actually better internally, like for the utility of the computer. But Apple's obviously positioned themselves as slick, cool, different. They also, I think, spend millions and millions on influencer marketing, but without actually like telling or making it obvious. Like you see like Justin Bieber in like TMZ photos wearing AirPods back in the day when no one wore AirPods. I think they just send out a lot of stuff to position themselves to that kind of market too. So
Yeah,
I think that's
also with that as well, right? You never see your favorite guru or influencer have a bulky fucking Microsoft computer. Like that's nothing that they flex. It's always something sleek, like a Mac. And when you look at a MacBook Pro, what do you associate that with? Rich luxury, like that. That's what you associate that laptop with. It might not be, and I completely hate the Mac in terms of the way it uses. It always overheats. It has all of these bad features, but I still got one because it actually, it looks cool and it is actually aesthetically pleasing.
Well, Akash, you just said like a big part it's in positioning really, but marketing is not a battle of products, it's a battle of perception, the emotions and stuff that drives everything. And positioning is like explosive in that line of thinking. You're perceived as the only option for this product or this issue or this situation. So that's very important. And something I want to bring up, like before the podcast, we were looking around what books we have. Let's do like a fundamental marketing principle. I think Pooley, you showed your Ogilvy book. Ogilvy, there's a whole chapter in positioning Ogilvy has, and then basically between Ogilvy, every famous great advertiser, every famous like industry destroying ad, there is a very powerful positioning component. So like if you look at Ogilvy's chapter on positioning, something like the Volkswagen Beetle examples, but yeah, he like has the actual ads in that book.
Yeah, he has a really good Dove one where he could have positioned the soap bar for like, he says like some like older man, like a scrubby man, but he positioned it to like that younger kind of woman who wants to make their skin feel like beautiful, etc. When it's just a soap bar, it's the same as another soap bar, but he positioned it. And now, like, I don't know about you guys, but when you think of Dove soap, I think of like really smooth, like elegant kind of soap.
Silky.
Yeah.
I don't think much about it, but I know what you mean. At the time, like that was like a main product that, by the way, at the time, like billboards and ads were like some of the only things you saw in media. Like media was so slim at the time. So like magazines, everyone read magazines. But yeah, like positioning is such a core component in every great breakthrough ad campaign in history. And it's just something I don't hear a lot of the Facebook ad, paid social community talk about. When, I think I talked to a few people in private when they talk about it, and they're very successful, but I don't hear a lot of people talking about it out loud. So yeah, I just think it's something to put out there. I definitely, like I said, every great marketing book or great famous marketer, back when they didn't have any data, they didn't have all the tools we have, they were still successful because a lot of them relied heavily on positioning. So I definitely like a lot of the advertisers out there, the paid social people out there, definitely look into positioning, start Googling it, look at examples of ads that have positioning, then look at, honestly, a lot of your failing clients' ads, and you'll see the difference between an ad with positioning and ad without positioning. And just look at that positioning Venn diagram. It's a very easy like exercise you can go through with any brand. I went through it with Magic Spoon, a brand I knew well, in 5 minutes. And it just makes a lot of that decision making. What should I talk about in my ad? What should the hero text in my landing page be? What should the headline banner text in my video be? What should the focal point of my ad be? It just answers a lot of those decisions to me when I'm making ads and creatives and landing pages. So yeah, that's definitely something that I just hope every advertiser out there takes a look at, especially in paid social, just takes a firm look at and definitely applies. I hope it works out.
Have you guys like got any examples on because we've obviously talked about the bigger competitors who have millions of dollars, so they have that opportunity to also change the product and change their positioning there. Have you guys had it from like a kind of smaller client where you've been able to essentially take a product that is almost like a commodity, like all the competitors the exact same, but position it in a totally different way and it's worked? Have you guys had that at all?
Yeah, so we worked with a charging brand, and it's literally just a charger, portable charger, and we almost like positioned it in a way where, and we actually gave different scenarios in what you need like for charging purposes. You might be on the train, you might be XYZ. But yeah, we positioned this charger in sort of a way where, and we did almost like 7 figures in 1 month, multiple 7 figures in 1 month, and it's just a charger. Like you can get it from your local store, or you can get and even if you think about like how we position it as well, and there's some aspects of it where you can say, hey, gift it to XYZ, and then like everyone needs a charger, so it's such a generic product, but how do you sort of position, and that sometimes comes down to also like things like the features, how many times can it charge compared to other chargers, what's the use cases, how easy can it fit in your pocket, like, and we use all of those sort of elements, even though every charger does the same thing. Like you can put it in your bag, you can put it in your thing. But yeah, that charger specifically did really, really well. And yeah, they made quite a lot of money. And I think that's one really good example of a mass market product where you can almost position it in a way where it's almost seemed like an extraordinary product when it really isn't. It's just still a charger.
Yeah, one example. I think it's a really good example. I know that one specifically you've talked about internally, the name and stuff. It was fun to watch you scale. Yeah, that's a really good example, and I think that scales so effectively. It's a really dangerous. It's like a really lethal combination. One I had was magnetic eyelashes eyeliner for women. It was not the first of its kind. There was big competitors in the market. To this day, I think it's like one of the bigger ones now in the industry. But it was a pretty new niche, but it wasn't the first. But what we did is they had like some detail that was different from others. It was like this small detail. So we did like, okay, honestly, the client was like, oh, we're trying to get a patent approved for it. I think so, I don't know what I'm not allowed to. I'm not going to get into other like detail. I'm just saying what's publicly available on this company's website. But a lot of that patent, go in their ads library. A lot of the stuff that's successful is talking about, oh, we're the first this patent pending, or we're the first the world's first ever magnetic eyelash and liner kit. Like slightly different than everything else out there, just because it was like so new compared to the rest of the industry, or even the rest of the magnetic there's been these very cheap magnetic versions. Just the way this is a very expensive version, actually. We raised the price halfway into working on the account, things improved. But like the way it positioned itself was actually very early in my career when I didn't do as much creative testing as I wanted, like as I really should have. But like with actually a pretty bad creative testing strategy, it was highly, highly successful. And I always think about it to this day. When I read that positioning, I'm like, oh, that's why that account was successful, even though my creative testing or my creative skills at the time, I thought they were good, but in hindsight, I don't think they were as good. So that's just something like everyone has this account that they might get, or not everyone, but a lot of times if you're working in the agency, you get an account and you're like, this is just scaling like wildfire. The creatives I don't think are that good, but why is it successful? A lot of the times it's because of that positioning. It's something very unique, or the way it's presented, the way the product is presented, or the way the founders set up the website, or they hand it off to an agency, like they don't know what they're doing. It's just very unique. And so I've had situations where a lot of clients, it's like a drop shipping product and it's not successful. That's why drop shipping is so hard. And you get these drop shipping clients. Sometimes it's this new cute product but it's like the kind of stuff you see in an airplane magazine. It's like, it's really hard because you're essentially buying a commoditized product in drop shipping. It's hard to have that position.
I think something as well, right? So if you have a look at some of the positioning is actually subjective in favor of the people that are selling the product. So if you see some of the ads that really do well, things like having things like the world's first X, and they put like it's not the world's first charger, it's the world's first portable charger. Like they have things like that, where it's like that's how you position a charger to make it sound like or extravagant. There's keywords that you can actually use, like the world's first, the best selling. There's all of these things to sort of position yourself in a way where it's like, okay, and it almost sounds like it's completely absolute, but it's completely subjective to the people that are selling it. Your version of best could be something completely different to someone else's version of best. What they might be looking for X, you might be looking for Y. So let's take a charger, like the charging, for example. It's a portable charger. Someone might think your best charger is something that can charge your laptop, your XYZ. Someone else might think a best charger is something that can fit in your pocket easily, XYZ. Both are right in their own world, very subjective to each other's and tailored towards each other's needs. But you, as selling it, can sort of appeal to both markets. Someone that wants to charge their phone multiple times, or someone that wants to fit in their pocket and for that portability aspect. But that's how you sort of use those hyperbolic phrases and keywords to really gain authority in that sort of space that you're in.
Yeah, I like that. Like, it's a really good point. As in, it comes back down to personas and like finding who your market is and what's valuable to them. Because perception is perceived value, right? It just comes back down to like creating a core persona in your business and not going outside of that necessarily, like knowing your core competence inside your target market and not try to reach mass market until you can. Because I think you can. Like, there's like, what's a good example? Like, Apple at the start was just for tech heads, people who loved like tech and all that. Then they grew obviously to mass market because they were able to. Same with a lot of those companies, like Nike was like athletes, and then they grew to mass market. But I don't think, a lot of the businesses would be working with would be, necessarily at that stage of mass market. So for the smaller entities, looking at, who your target market is, really curing and solving their problem, doing really well there, and then kind of expanding your product range to fit a wider market is super helpful.
I mean, one common D2C direct-to-consumer play, I forgot who said this. It was either Eric Banholtz, the beard brand guy, or Ezra Firestone. It was one of their YouTube videos. They're like it's like if you're starting out e-commerce. Great videos, by the way. Google both them and see their YouTube content. But like a classic D2C play is to take a commoditized, old, boring product and just make new, sexy packaging on it. You see this a lot with like deodorants and soaps and like these little stuff you get at Target or wherever they have like little, like very commoditized consumer packaged goods. It's just the same product, but just cool, sexy branding. Like a lot of times like a pastel color, like this painting behind, or this blanket behind. You see what I mean? Like made for like a younger people, or like people want to look cool or something. You see that a lot. And that's a form of positioning in itself. And that's probably one that you as a Facebook advertiser in the agency world, as a media buyer, are more familiar with, like the packaging and look and feel of just an otherwise commoditized product. So that's something very interesting. So that's like the perception side of things. It's like this new version of it. Even a lot of products you probably use are that. So like find out what it is about that people like, and then try to put it into words, put it into copy and script. I mean, Dr. Squatch is a very good, to me, Dr. Squatch is the best example of this. They took just like soap, the same kind of soap you get at like a farmer's market or something that like old women would buy. They put like cool branding on it. Go to their ad library right now. It's all like, oh, I'm going to make soap for young dudes. It's all like women in bikinis or hot women smelling it, saying, "Oh, I would love a man who smells like this." Or they have like extreme humor, like two like spherical shaped objects. Oh, you don't want your balls smelling gross. They go really hard in they're just brilliant advertisers and hilarious. But you see what they're doing. They're taking soap and they're using they use a lot of different emotions, but they're just taking a commoditized product. It's not sexy or fun or cool, and they're just smart marketers. They use their marketing skills to position it as this new kind of like same old soap, but it's for a new audience that hasn't really cared about it. So, I mean, let's like pick something right now. What's something that like your parents use you don't really care about?
Hairbrush.
Hairbrush. Okay. So if they made one that was like, I don't know, maybe some kind of marble design or some kind of design, and then it said like, someone cool, really cool looking that everyone in your age group looks up to, like, like me, for example, on the ad. I'm just kidding. But there's ways to package a hairbrush or something or make it look cool. I'm sure there are examples of this. If you
a big example, I don't know, like it is like three years ago, maybe 4 years ago, was charcoal toothpaste. They've taken toothpaste, your commodity, made it into sort of charcoal, talked about all these benefits of charcoal toothpaste, and every influencer were promoting charcoal toothpaste. Or same with like bamboo brushes. Yeah. Another big thing. They've taken toothbrushes, just made them bamboo, like literally the handle's bamboo, nothing else about it's bamboo, still plastic bristles. And then they've taken all of these like commodities and just made them slightly unique and displaying them in a way where they're a completely different product, when in reality they could like have the same objective, which is to clean your teeth. And that's essentially what they do. But yeah, they're sort of taken that commodity and completely changed the game.
Yeah, I love it. I think the example, like you said earlier, Liquid Death, from like just a pure, if I'm a marketer, how do I make this? Okay, I just have a can of water. What can I do? Liquid Death to me is the best example on the planet of positioning. It's like, it's not the first kind of its product. It's not even like the first category. It's positioning like it's the first product so it could be like the first new category of an actual product class, or it could be the first product for a certain audience, like specifically for them, like almost aggressively for like the certain audience. Like Liquid Death is aggressively, or Black Rifle Coffee is aggressively for this like Joe Rogan podcast audience.
I think with Liquid Death and Death Wish Coffee, Black Rifle Coffee,
yeah,
those are prime examples of that saying, you can sell ice to an Eskimo. That is like the extreme version of that. because, you know, they've positioned themselves so well. They've made water seem extraordinary when in reality it's just canned water, but everyone's drinking it. Everyone, like, you know, it's on loads of different podcasts. They do a lot of influencer marketing, make sure people are seeing it everywhere. So then they're like, oh, you know, what's this? It, you know, canned water, but then people eventually start buying it. It gets retail, and it just, you know, almost flywheel effect into that.
Another good example was sort of like in the Wolf of Wall Street, where he's like, sell me this pen, right? And like when he like sells that pen, he like positions it as, one, he needs the pen. Like that's, I'm not sure if that's positioning, but like he asked to sign something, like he asked the guy to sign something, and he doesn't have a pen, so like he's got the need. But then like he goes in to sell, like, how do you want to feel when you're signing this document or this contract, like, and he wants to feel like he's, you know, holding a luxurious pen, something that like means something, as opposed to like a stupid kind of lightweight ballpoint pen. So like I think pens are a really good example too, or any kind of commodity product, like we've been saying, like you can position it, and there's just examples nowadays of everything, that like there's a pen that's $2 versus a pen that's $90. Like how do they position that there as well is a really good way to kind of look at positioning as a whole.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. Nice. I think we've got a lot of good stuff here. So kind of some closing statements, like if you're a Facebook ads or paid social media buyer, you have an account, look at companies like Liquid Death. It's very unlikely that you have a client that's like the first of its niche. Maybe even Liquid Death might not be the most actionable, because you have to change the whole branding and packaging and everything. But like, look at ads, like, I'm trying to think of very close ones. Honestly, look at just Google magnetic eyelash brands. Google like up and coming industries and see what's different about them. See like what's going on. The skincare one's a great one. Actually, honestly, a great example of positioning that I'm surprised we didn't even talk about it is Boom by Cindy Joseph. Like, it's literally the same product for a new audience. So maybe there's different nuances for that audience. I'm not a scientist, but that's what like look for ways like you can position your product differently. Look for maybe a new audience that you can position your product to. I've marketed to the 60 plus cosmetics and skincare industry. If you have images of 20-year-old girls models, it might be effective, you know what I mean? But like, try positioning, be the first thing of its kind for that group of people. See what you can do. Just Google positioning, look around, see how you can apply it to your ads. Guaranteed it's gonna be some kind of improvement. Definitely a big picture kind of thing though. Client doesn't like it. They don't want to do any kind of positioning. They want to stay with the same but cheaper. You know, you don't have to worry about them because they're not gonna be your client that long, because they're not gonna be in business that long.